So to some degree, you know, we all are consistent and inconsistent. Kind of how do we define those sort of things? So I saw you hit 4 balls, right? But of those 4, all thin, all either curving left or wanting to curve left.
Okay.
Right? And so like when we go play, whether we're hitting balls in the range or outside, obviously the #1 goal, which James mentioned, which is the same for you, me, and everyone else, is like hit the ball solid. Compression, right, to your point.
Yeah.
So for most of us, I think it's like, okay, what do we need to do to hit the ball solid every time first? And then like, okay, how can we clean up some of the direction stuff, right? So when we're looking at a swing, and when you're looking at your swing, you want to identify, okay, if I'm hitting them thin or fat, or whatever it is, what are the biggest things that are leading to the contact issues? And what we're going to see for James is really 2 main things. One, which you brought up, is your setup from the down the line, the distance and the posture. And number 2 is the motion through the ball, And usually when you hit thin, there is something you can do through the ball that should have a more immediate impact. And then oftentimes there's something earlier in the swing, let's say like setup, that may or may not have an immediate effect, but you kind of want to fix like root cause wise. So when we start with the setup, and we're looking at James from the down the line angle, there are a couple of things going on here in terms of the posture. One is that you're very, very bent over. Part of that from being tall, you know, like you mentioned. You're very, very bent over. So like if we were to draw a line down your butt line and up to the sky, like this angle, straight up and down is 180 degrees. You want your posture angle to be like 150-ish. Let's just say it's like a ballpark, 150. Okay. I would say you're like 130, too bent over. Now, part of that's distance away from the ball, and part of that's just general posture, which we'll go through in a minute. But the problem is oftentimes, if you stand too bent over to start with, you've got nowhere to go but up. And when you go up and your torso and body quite literally get farther from the ball, that would make that radius length change, which would be like the thin shots.
Okay.
So like when you imagine you're getting farther from the ground if you're watching this, that would serve to reason that you'd hit a little bit higher up, right? You'd hit some of those thin shots. So usually your body wants to do the opposite of how you set it up. So when you're set up very bent over and we start to work up to the swing, you do a lot of really good things here. There's some little stuff to talk about, like your club face gets a little bit on the close end of the spectrum. Part of that's from grip. Part of that's going to lead to some pull hooks. That's not like the main priority. But when we're working down and through, some of the thin shots, and you do a nice job, like it not causing too many issues.
Correcting.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you do a nice job here. But then through the ball, you can see part number 2, which is a combination of 2 things. From face on, we're going to see the radius getting way shorter. The radius is, if you hold the club in your left arm straight away like this, the radius would be like the distance from the shoulder to the club head. So the longer that this would be, if this is the ground, right, the odds of contact to the ground are the highest. If we were to say bend your left arm, see how that wants to get farther away, and then also let's cup this left wrist more. Let's go this way. So both of those things would get that club head farther away from the ground. So let's flatten your left wrist and straighten your arm. See, that would want to get the club closer, but the more you let that club head pass there, the farther it gets. Okay. And so when we look at James from face on, especially through the hit, what we're going to see is, notice the left wrist and the shaft. See how the left arm gets bent, which isn't necessarily the end of the world, but see how quickly the club head's passing the hands. So if we took a picture like right here, and let's say for this one, we put James next to like Adam Scott pass impact with the hands in line with the left thigh. You see the difference?
Yeah, for sure.
Or any kind of tour player. Their left arm, most of them have the left arm straighter, but they for sure wouldn't have the club head as far past the hands. And then that frame, that'll continue on here. So see, once we go here, so once the hands are just past the leg, like this, exactly, we see the arms are too bent and the club head's past the hands too much. They would be more that way, as you know, right? And so that's something that we need to talk about and focus on, but also the setup pieces. But we don't want that as much through the hit. That's a picture of James through impact. So we see this radius length narrowing, left arm bending, left wrist cupping, and then the butt of the club is too close to the body.
It's almost like I'm fighting the momentum of the club as it goes down and not letting it
Very
go
much so,
yeah.
Very much so. So when you take your setup here, and there's multiple ways to start this, and when I say take your setup, this is with like, we're going to talk about the setup in a minute, but let's pause that. But let's just say you're in there for your setup for a second. If we got you, keep your hands in the club the whole time. What you want to learn, at least to start with, is like, what is it supposed to feel like through impact? By the time your arms get parallel to the ground, a very good checkpoint would be that the arms are still straight. If we pull up Grant Wade, any good ball striker here as a visual, these arms would be straight, which means the elbows would be fairly close together. Whether we need to squeeze them or not, we'll talk through, but definitely we wouldn't want them very wide. Now, when the arms get straighter, we'll notice the butt of the club gets farther away from the body. So that would lengthen the radius, right? Now, if we bend the arms, the butt of the club gets closer. This would be bad contact, thin shots. This would be better contact, right? Solid contact. Now, as we do that, you notice that the foot's still on the ground. And when we watch your swing on the way through, and we're gonna look here, we notice how long your trail side stays back. And that inhibits part of you being able to do the correct things through impact, meaning, see right there? So by the time the hands are even exiting above the shoulder,
My foot is still.
shoelaces at the ball. So when your shoelaces are at the ball, your right side can't turn through, which is like the speed of the club's got to go somewhere, right? And so that's going to be that passing. So in order to not have that, we need to allow that foot to release, right? So to start with, this would turn into a mantra of like arms straight, shoelaces towards the target. Arms straight, shoelaces towards the target. And you would want to eliminate variables, right? So you want to go ahead and keep your hands on there. So when you're practicing this, we want to get to here first. Show me shoelaces towards me. We need to be able to get here with no ball, no consequence, no speed first. Call this grade 1. Once this gets easy, which might be in one swing, then we add a little bit of swing length and speed, grade 2, and then move it up. But you're constantly seeking here, right? You're constantly seeking here. Let me demonstrate one, James, if you can just hop by those tees for 1 second. So when you're hitting this in motion, what you're looking to see here is that. So effectively, if I hit a ball like this, it'd be like a punch shot, right? The ball would go lower compared to normal. But every time I'm hitting, my arms are extended, my shoelaces are towards the target. Now, once I can do this here and demonstrate that, I can take that same feel into a full swing. But it's training that little short piece first. So, and the point of that, let's do a couple of those practice swings. If you know where you're trying to go, like end goal wise, you have somewhere to measure. So every time, go ahead and do one little half one, stop at arms parallel to the ground, shoelaces towards me. Shorter, yep, slower. You know, hey, you have something to measure to see if you're doing it correct. Perfect, let's do it again. But you also give your brain much better chance of let's do it again, do a couple. You give your brain a much better chance of knowing where to go. It's just like if I'm driving from Pennsylvania, if I need to go to Florida versus California, I'm taking a drastically different route. I want to know that before I start driving. Excellent, let's do that one more time. Just a little caveat, do your little backswing. This will help with a couple pieces. This should be, when you're doing this, still set. So when you're practicing this, if you're doing these little like 9 to 3 o'clock ones, this is like no wrist set at all. Let's just have a little bit of set. So this arm and shaft, like a little closer to 90. And then when you come through though, this will be right to here. You with me on that? Cool, let's do that a couple. And this is like building in a core movement and motion, and then you can start to add little layers to it. So we're just gonna kind of do a couple little nuances. Yeah, good. So when you get done here, perfect. So when you get done, you wanna see this club face for you, basically straight up and down, right? At this point in time, when you come through, you wanna have everything square to the target. So the hips are square, the chest and shoulders are square, the arms are parallel, and the foot's all the way released. So we don't have like the hip way back, right? The hips are square, but beautiful, excellent. Let's do 1 or 2 more like that. It's just building in like your stock motion. If you're someone who struggles with consistency, you want to put pieces in that would lead to consistency, right? The basics. So let's go halfway back. So just as you're doing these 9 to 3s, this is about a 90-degree angle. So there's a little bit of wrist set, right, for us. And then when we come through, now James, his grip is stronger, so it'll be a little bit different. But effectively what you're looking for is, let's just say the toes right on top of the heel. Toes right on top of the heel. With me on that? Good. Let's do 1 or 2 more, and then we're gonna put a ball in for that. Good. Excuse me, a little bit more wrist set on the way back. Excuse my little cough here. Good. Now, let me demonstrate one. I'll have you right by the tees for a second, James. And then after we do this base core thing, because this is something like I want you to do forever, then we'll talk about the setup.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you do these first couple ones, now I've got a 7-iron. This is gonna go like maybe 100 yards. So this is like short and slow from here to here. So maybe 100 and whatever. But you see the ball flight?
Yeah.
So my arms are straight, the knees, the hips, the chest and shoulders are fully turned, and the foot's released. That ball flight's probably half as high as normal. And I don't know, I mean, I maybe went like 120 or 30, but the point is it goes shorter than normal.
Okay.
I wasn't swinging super hard. I'm not trying to hit, you know, anything super hard here. This is slower and controlled. And for sure, when we talked, when James mentioned like he goes fast in tempo, you do go fast. And you can go fast, but probably when you're learning how to like walk,
Yeah.
yeah, you go a little slower in the beginning. So let me just grab one of these here as we do this. Hang on one second. And now when you're practicing this, and what James's goal is to do the motion correct. Effectively, the ball is going to get in the way, and we'll talk about that as we go. Your goal is to hold your finish and check and see how you did, right? Let's go ahead and hit. Finish with the arms straight, body fully turned. Cool, and let's see, so a little skinny. And then the habit you want to get into when you're doing that, especially if you hit the ball thin, is contact with the mat. So like when you're doing the practice swings and James doing them, there should, see you hear that sound? Do that again. So that's like a clip. No clip. Let's see this one. Listen to the sound. Clip. Now show me a thud. That's closer again. Ready? Ready audio? Listen to this. Now if I thud the ground, what are the odds of a thin shot?
Not so much.
Very low.
Yeah.
What are the odds of a thin shot like this?
Very much.
Very high.
Yeah.
Here's a thud, ready? Hear that difference? Now how am I able to thud it?
More steep of a,
Yeah.
coming down more steep.
What goes up? Now what if you go back and there's no up?
You're not going to get the thud.
It's harder. So when you go, that's why just that little like wrist set
Extra
thing.
wrist set,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just like set the wrist a little bit, get the club up, thud,
Okay.
right?
I think the
So
half swing is messing with my...
Especially if you're, again, if you're on the thin spectrum, maybe don't even hit too many balls until you're able to do the thud and run. He'll get it. Might be one swing, that was closer. Might be 10 swings, might be 100. You have to hear a thud, more thud. But Eric, how do I thud more? Yeah, that's good. You hear the difference there?
Mm-hmm.
That would be like a non-negotiable. Excellent. And we're gonna tweak the setup a little bit, but this needs to be done regardless, you know what I mean? So your job is thud the mat and get to the follow through. Thud the mat. Okay, there was no thud, but that was the first one that we hit pretty solid. Would you agree?
Yes.
So now we're gonna look, this is the half swing practice swing we're looking at. Terrible moving camera work by me. So there's your half swing. See, there's just kind of a normal amount of wrist setting there. And then when you come through, now we're looking at the picture pass impact where the arm and the shaft are more in a line over the leg. Would you agree?
Yes.
And that's what we're starting with. Now, is that a full swing, full speed? No. But you don't go from like baby to sprint, right? You gotta walk, you crawl, right? So this is step one for us, beautiful. And then the next picture is pass impact here, also much different. Now, if we look at this new picture compared to our normal, here's your normal.
Yeah, way different.
That's what you're seeking. And this is arm straight. Look at the foot turning, the knee and hip turning, the eyes out towards the target.
But it needs to be more turn. I can see that in the picture.
Yeah, exactly. And as we do like 30 balls instead of 3 and 300 instead of 30, so it get easier. But this turning like this is gonna look much better from the other angle. So that was excellent for ball one.
Okay.
Let's do one more, and then we're gonna do the the setup. Now, oftentimes when we do these drills, I got a cough coming. The question becomes like, hey, how long do I do this until I go to my normal swing? And the answer in reality, good. Now notice when you hold your finish, how you go too far and then you have to kind of recoil down.
Yeah.
I would want you to learn how to not have to do that.
Okay.
Now, would it be easier
Is it
to
slower?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The question is, how long do you need to do this until I start doing full swings? And the answer is, you do it until you can't get it wrong. You do it until you can't get it wrong. So he should be hitting balls doing this. That might be 7 more swings. That might be 7 days, 7 weeks. I was gonna say 7 months, but if it takes 7 months, you're probably not doing it correct. But you have to do it until you don't, yeah, see how notice like each one of these now, we're getting ground contact. The finish and follow through, he's doing better. You can see that he's doing better. And the ball flight should start to look more of the same. when you come in and you say, hey, I'm inconsistent, the ball's going in 2 different directions, I don't know where it's going. When you're doing the correct things, the ball might not look perfect every time, but like these ball flights, which we can show, right, are like the same every time. They're kind of little low, pretty solid, and then like little tight, tiny draws. And then we own this, and then we gradually add a little bit of swing length and speed, but you don't rush into that. Arms are straight to the follow through, body's turned, we're taking a nice thud. Excellent. So like even some of those, like I would say that'd be our bad one.
Yeah.
We hit a little behind it. You still did it pretty good. The ball still went generally where we're going. Not end goal, but step 1. Very, very good.
Consistency.
So if you're struggling with the fins and the contact, make sure you have the pieces through the hit into the follow through. Practice where you hold that, arm straight, body fully turned, and get a good thud every time. If you're not able to get a thud and you're hitting fin shots, make sure that you set the club enough on the way back. Because when we get it going up, it's going to want to come down more. Start there and build up. So the setup pieces. Effectively, the moral of the story is that you set up very bent over. Now, people are taller or shorter, wider, thinner, whatever. The taller you are, typically you want to obviously get your clubs fit. So you would need like longer clubs. You might need to change lie angle. But the taller you are, I wouldn't bend over more to get down to the ball as much as I would potentially look at widening my stance.
Okay.
So like if your feet are very narrow right there, right, go back to where you were, this would be the tallest. Now as you widen your stance, get your feet wider, you would get lower to the point of like we could get crazy. But that would be a strategy that would get rid of some of you being taller. How wide would you go? With something like a 7-iron, you probably would have your ankles just outside of pelvis, something like that. That can help a little bit. But in terms of how bent over you are, that's the piece that really we want to focus on from down here. So we said with the setup, if we look at his picture, very bent over. And if we look at like a normal tour pro, they would be taller, right? Yeah. So if you stand normal like me, kind of how do we feel this, like this? In fact, let me grab a club, we'll do it together. So if like I want to set my posture, right? I would stand up with a club kind of in front of me, just relax, chilling out. I would bend my knees a little bit to the point where they're kind of over the ball, so right like that. Now, how you get down to the ball, and watch me for 1 second so you can see this. How you get down the ball, I don't want you to do it by your butt going back.
Okay.
Imagine there's like a wall here where you can't go back at all. So how I'm gonna get down to the ground is mainly through rounding. I'm just gonna move forward so they can see. So I'm tall here like this, bend my knees. Watch, I'm gonna round down to the ground, starting with my head. So notice my butt's not going back. You see that? Mm-hmm. And that's how I would get down to the ball. How you're getting down to the ball like this right now is hinging from the hips, right? That'd be like a good athletic posture if I was like lifting weights this way, but I'm always gonna wanna go the opposite way. And again, you manage that pretty good. Like, frankly, you're probably in the 1 to 5% of people who get away with that fairly well. But would we rather
not Tony Finau though, right?
Not quite, not quite. So like when you come here, I'd rather just here. Again, you got a wall. You could quite literally have an object kind of right behind your butt. You'd want to go only about a fist to the point where you wouldn't hit this. So stand up straight. So if I put a fist behind his butt like this, right, one fist length behind his butt, my hand's there, your butt should not hit that and you should be able to round down to the ball. So that should feel way more rounded in here and your butt's way less back. You with me on that?
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the arm hang, the arm should hang basically straight line down from your shoulders. So when you're like before, hey, should I reach out? Should I not reach out? When you do it correctly, let's say with a 7-iron, this should be essentially straight down. So when you're here like this, your arms should just be kind of chilling like here. Okay. And then we would bring them together. Good. And that's effectively where we should be. Now your knees will be bent, your hips will feel a little bit more underneath you, right about there. So that's good. Because right now, we don't need to have that because the ball's there. Right now the ball, who knows where the ball is? Right about there. Stand even a little bit taller. Stand all the way up. Good. And now start to round down. Feel the difference there? Mm-hmm. So I'm not allowing the pelvis to be able to kick back. Now this is gonna feel very slouched to you compared to normal. You can let your shoulders relax. Good. So this would give us a setup. The pressure should be on the balls of the feet. If I drew a line down from the kneecaps are over the balls of the feet. And this is all stuff I learned from George Gankas. He got great videos on this. The back of armpits and kneecaps are also over the balls of the feet. And the arms will hang kind of straight line down. You with me on that? Mm-hmm. Let's do that. Start standing straight up and down, do it again. So bend the knees a little. Pressure should be on the balls of the feet. Atta boy. Yeah, okay, so now the arms are straight down. So all things equal, James, you should feel closer, a little closer to the ball, more rounded and kind of taller compared to normal. Exactly. So I feel like this is rounded, the butt's tucked under a little bit. That would be like a perfect posture. Do you feel those things I mentioned? Like
Yeah, I definitely feel it, and it's not, it's not something I can feel.
It's unnatural.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, unnatural.
So we're here, knees round from the top without the butt going back. Arms hang straight down. Good. Beautiful. That would be a good setup. Now from there, we get to the follow-through pieces. And then you would learn to hit, obviously with just the arms parallel to the ground. Yeah, there you go. Weights in the balls of the feet. Yeah, good job. That's a perfect setup. And if you're doing this at home, what you can always do is, again, get set up, put a wall behind you, and get your butt, when you stand straight up, one fist away from the wall, and don't, if you hit it, only lightly tap it. But look how much better that posture is. Beautiful job. I would say these pieces for you should solve like 80 to 90% of your immediate problems. So knees, weight on the balls of the feet. There you go, beautiful job. Arms are hanging straight line down over the toe line. Back of armpits and kneecaps. Excellent, let's go ahead and hit with that. Good job, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job there, dude. Get to the follow through, arms extended. Awesome. And so the starting point, let me hop in there for 1 second, Bo. So when you're practicing these and you're doing the solidness of contact and going through the setup, I would just talk myself through that in the beginning until it starts getting comfortable, right? Just like we talked ourselves through, like, here's my fingers on the keyboard, here's my fingers on the keyboard, and now you type, eat, and don't even think about it. This will be the same way, right, as you go. So we're here, one fist away from a wall, knees rounded down, so butt didn't go back, and then I'm gonna go 2 arms parallel, set it, thud, arms parallel. Make sure my knees, hips, chest, shoulders are turned, arms are extended. That'd be like ball 1. As that gets easier, I would just increase my swing length. Maybe now I'll go like full backswing, but still to arms parallel. This would be like phase 2. Stand normal, knees, round over, butt doesn't go back. More of a full backswing, but still to arms parallel. Right, so that's maybe more of like a 3/4 length swing. And then how do I go to full? Once I'm able to do that, I take that same thing, and what do? I keep turning, and I let my arms fold. So there's not much else I gotta really do once I can get past that. So I take those same feels, knees, round it over, butt doesn't go back. I'm gonna feel basically a full swing, but feel like I get through that spot. And there's a full swing. So I felt like when I swung there, I was here, I just kept going and fold over. So that's like how the progression would work. But again, how long do you stay here?
Till it's effortless.
Yeah, exactly, till you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's the right answer for all of us, till you can't get it wrong.